Hey everyone, it's Jason. Have a bunch of posted videos for all my boss monster games. Here's the full collection. Oop, I knocked them all over. But today we're not going to actually be opening up any more boss monsters. We're going to be opening up a game that is spiritual successor. Maybe not the right word, because it's not going to take over a boss monster. Hopefully they keep making it. But it's like the other half of the story. It's a brand new game they just came out with called Overboss. So if you're familiar with what boss monster is, or if not, you can go check out my videos and see more. But what the idea of the game is you take control of a boss or a villain, like a Bowser type character, and you build a dungeon that heroes have to try and enter through. So it's more like a 8-bit, 16-bit RPG game. Lots of the images on there will be very reminiscent if you think of like Metroid or Castlevania type game, or possibly Mega Man or like Mario to some extent too, where your hero is going entering the dungeon or entering the world or whatever. They're going from the left to the right, trying to get to the boss. They have to get through all these different rooms with traps and various monsters. And that's what you're supposed to be setting up as a boss, and you're competing against other bosses, which are the other players, to see who can actually take out the most heroes. So you want to entice the heroes to your dungeon, and then you're trying to take them out. So what this game is the overworld, essentially. So think of this more of I'm liking a lot more like Zelda. Like the Zelda games. I'm going to try and flip this over. So what you're going to do is you create this overworld, this map overhead, and you're actually going to be creating all the different different areas that they can go to. Like if you think of an old school Zelda game where you have this is the forest, this is the swamp, this is the graveyard. Sort of like Mega Man-ish too, but Mega Man has this 8 different worlds where this is kind of they're all together. But you're playing as another boss. You're trying to build your map, or build your map for your heroes to have to go through to fight all these different enemies, where they look for the dungeons. And you're playing against all the other players, and you're trying to create combos and score points. It's a very interesting game. So you could kind of look at this as being the pre-game to the boss monster. You build your overall map, and then you have a dungeon on there. Then the hero enters your dungeon, and then now you play boss monster to show them entering your dungeon. They are not, with that being, they are the same world, but they are not the same game. They are not actually compatible with each other. You could play this, finish it up, and then then crack open a game of boss monster and be like, now that we've done this, this is what happens. So here's a big old instruction book. Gonna show all the different world tiles. There's forests, caves, graveyards, swamps, camps, castles, clouds, deserts. There's some summoning circles and volcanoes. Plus there's little monsters that match each one, some crystals for each one. There's 5 different boards, so you have up to 5 players. There's dungeon tiles, portals, mini bosses, score sheets, token bags, your boss cards. They have command cards for later on. This game also reminds me kind of Sushi Go, because it's a point scoring game is what it is each player is going to be taking turns. I love how the instructions on here are, because I have one of the bosses, this is King Croak. He's explaining the rules, I'm blah blah, and then he'll explain how to play it. I should just set up is you're going to take your big boards, you're going to place a tile, gather whatever area regions you're gonna play as, and you don't use all of them, so you're gonna mix and match them. You play as 5 each time plus the dungeons, So there are 10 different ones, I believe, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10. You're only playing as 5 each time. So you're playing as like these 5, I think, is like what they recommend to start with. And then next game you could play as these, or you could mix and match them. And it's just because some have easier or more difficult conditions to them, which I can kind of go over. And then each turn, player's going to pick up one tile, put it on their board, put the corresponding monster on it. You can pick wherever you want on your board. And then again, it's kind of depending on where you put it, you're getting different points. That'll make more sense in a minute. And there's other various things for scoring. Dungeon tiles do stuff differently. You get mini bosses and monsters. So here's actually goes through and explains all your scoring. So just gonna go over one of these right now. So like the forest, for example, player receives a total number of points depending on the number of forest tiles they have on their map, as shown to the table on the right. So on the cards, going to show the forests as 1, 3, 6, 10, and 15. So if you have one forest, you gain 1 point. If you play 2 forest tiles, you gain 3 points. If you play 3, you gain 6. If you play 5 or more, you get 15. So forests get better the more you can try and play. So you're going to compete with the other players, trying to see like, oh, so if I play one forest, that's fine. But then if somebody else plays a forest, now you guys are kind of competing to see who can get it. So like if, there's a third forest comes out, player A grabs it, player B has to now decide, okay, now do I keep trying to go for more forests, or do I let the other player keep grabbing them? If I let them get them, they're going to immediately jump up to 6 points. But, so it's ebb and flow. And that one, like, anyone can get it, but they have, like, graveyards, for example, has a base score of 1, so you're going to get 1 point for every graveyard, no matter what, or whatever its point value is. And it has a crown and a secondary crown. So it has, whoever has the most graveyards gets 5 points. Whoever has the second scores 2 points. So that's one where you have 3 players and each of you grabs one graveyard, okay, you're all going to get 1 point and then you're going to tie for 5. But then the minute a second player grabs one, they're all of a sudden in the lead. Now they have 5, the other players have 2. And now you have to decide, do you keep trying to go towards it? Because the first player doesn't have to grab any more to gain anything above that 5 points. And that's how, they'll have all little effects like that. And I'll kind of go over them as we go. But that's the subject of the game, is you're trying to play these tiles in different orders and combinations. Each tile itself has a bonus, plus you gain a bonus if your monster corresponds. You gain bonus points for having mini bosses, gain bonus points for your crystals matching having certain types of land. Plus you also gain bonuses for having monster bans if you have monsters in a row. So sometimes it might be more beneficial to not have your monster match your land, but just to get it out. Yeah, so it's a kind of like competitive scoring game, and it's more or less until you start adding the advanced game variations, it's basically player 1 takes a turn, player 2 takes a turn, player 3 takes a turn, rotate back around, and you're not really affecting each other, except for you might be taking a resource somebody else wants, and you might re-go. And again, that's just if you've played Sushi Go, it's a very similar game, where that game, you're trying to match different items together to gain more points, but you didn't know what your opponents were doing. This, on the other hand, you know exactly what your opponents are doing. You can see what they're placing down, you can see what they're putting where, so you have that idea. They do have advanced mechanics. You can play a board that has more tiles, spaces, so you can play longer. You can add in the boss cards, so you don't have to play with the boss cards to begin with. You can, because they'll have a special one-time reveal ability, plus they have their own scoring, So it actually adds an extra element to it. Then there are also command cards which you can play, which will mess with your opponents or potentially yourself. And then on the back, there's this really nice thing just showing how to score up a game. So, like, on your score pad here, it's going to show your 5 terrains, and then you write in which type you're using, each player. And then you're going to go through and figure out how many you scored for your terrain types, for your tiles, and then you're going to check out your other one and figure out your total score. So it's really interesting. And I'll come back to this, and we'll look at this again after we went through all the components. Because I don't want to get you too bogged down in everything else until we kind of went over it. So there's also another sheet here for solo mode. So if you want to play against yourself, you're basically playing for a high score. And there's going to be some different levels. Level 1, level 2 is going to specify what terrains you use, what boss cards you use, what you're trying to accomplish to score various points. So that's kind of cool, and there's 6 different levels there. It's like we got some side quests. You gain extra points for doing different things, like if you have mini bosses, crystals. So it's kind of cool. I haven't really looked at this too much, so I don't know what all of these are. But yeah, just it's nice that they included a solo mode, because sometimes you can't get enough people together to play. And then here's just the quick step guide. It's always nice to have too. It's just really quickly explaining, take these, do these, place this, place that. And then all your scoring. So you can just keep this out, so you don't have to keep opening up your book all the time for all that. Alright, so that's that. Let's look at what our tiles are. Let's look at what the actual cool features of the game are. So, we're going to get this box. You can see, I opened up the box, and I unwrapped these, so don't worry if you buy these, you think they're going to be sliding around. But yeah, we got all our token tiles, which actually stick up above the box. And then the note right here on the bottom, it says, after punching your tokens, you may wish to insert some of the used punch boards beneath your plastic inserts to ensure that it fits flush with the top of the box, so stuff's not sliding around. So without anything in here, you can see there's a little gap. He's just saying after you punch it out, you might want to drop like 1 or 2 boards in there just to flush this to the top. That's up to you, I guess. If you don't mind a little space there, that's your choice. So we have these really cool artworks. And what's really neat is during the Kickstarter campaign, they unlocked, and who knows how they actually planned. Maybe they planned to do this originally, and it was just an interesting thing they did later, or maybe they decided enough people said stuff that they wanted it. So each one has different artwork, which makes it really cool, because that way when you're playing these, you're not just playing the same 5-6 tiles over and over. So these are the swamps. And how the swamps score is the circle here is going to show it gets 1 base point. So you get 1 point no matter what for playing a swamp. And then you get 1 for every mushroom next to it, which is the mushroom for every swamp. So as you play your swamps near each other, they gain more points. And then you also gain 1 for it being next to a water's edge. So if we look at one of our big boards here, here's one of our boards. So we have water tiles and we have mountain tiles. So if I played, I'm just going to pop out one of my swamps here. So if I played my swamp tile right here, I would currently get 1 point for playing it, and I would gain 1 point for it being next to the water. So this tile would be worth 2 points. Now if I played a second one, right there, I would have 1 point for the tile, 1 for being next to the water, and 1 being next to a swamp. So I'd have 3 points for this and 3 points for that. And that's how you kind of get it. But as you're playing the game, if you drew these two, had the option of picking these two right away, great. But you might get later in the game and you might have to put your second one down here. Just based on other things getting filled or how that works. Or maybe you have to put your second one there so you don't get that water bonus, but at least you get Demolish for being next to a swamp. And then on the back side, they're all just going to have the Overboss, because you actually play these face down in a pile, and then you draw them up and put them in the marketplace. So you can't pick and choose ahead of time. But yeah, the swamps are usually home to like the witches. We've got little witch houses. And I'm knocking out tiles down over here. So then up next here we have the dungeons. So the dungeons are a unique type. So normally every other, except for the dungeon, every other type, when you play it, you immediately put one of your monster tiles on here. That's usually why there's a little gap kind of in the center, to show what kind of monsters roaming on there. Let's see if we have swamps. Let's find a swamp monster. So here we have one of our little witches, which are going to be double-sided. So when I play down my swamp, if I have the witch, if she's with it, I can put her there. And then she also gains a point for being on the matching tile. But what might happen though also is you might end up drawing the swamp tile with a different monster. We could end up, let's just pop out a different monster here. So we could have popped it out, and we could have ended up having to put the little kobold in there from the forest. So I don't gain the bonus for having that, but I might be able to line up several kobolds together and gain the banding point. So that's kind of how that works. The dungeons, however, do not get a monster on them, no matter what. So when you play this, now I can't put a monster on it. So if I had a monster tile that went with it, you actually put it in your little layer down here in the corner. And then later on, if you ever have a tile that doesn't have a monster for some reason, or if you have a portal, you can swap monsters around. So it lets you swap some up here, lets you do some different things. And like here's one of the portals, and the portals are actually kind of neat because they're one side's a green side, and then one side's and then the other side's blank to show that the portal's been used. But dungeons gain 1 point for being played, and then they gain 1. I don't know why it says not equal to the number of spaces around it. So what it does is it gains an extra point for every unique tile around it. So if you play this in the center of your board, you can gain 4 points by playing 4 things around it. If you play it in the corner, you're only going to gain up to 2. And I do like the little different artwork to show the different types of dungeons, like a graveyardy one, like the forest one. Again, this here really reminds me of like Legend of Zelda. So that's really cool. Alright, so that's those. Down here in the corner, we have our little mini bosses. So if you're familiar with Boss Monster, they came out with the mini boss set. So these are kind of like the just kid or alternate versions of the characters. Jinx, I don't remember, something Brass Knuckle, Icicle Man, Octorock, Cerebella, and we had Kid Croak was the other one, and these guys are double-sided. So the mini bosses work like any of the other monsters, but instead of having a matching type, they're just always worth 2. So if you play this guy on a swamp, he's always going to be worth 2, regardless. He's better. So on one hand, he's better than matching a type, because the matching ones only gain you 1, where he always gains you 2. But they don't band with other creatures, so they don't gain that extra little bonus. So they're kind of like one of them double-edged swords. They can be better depending on the situation. So here we have a couple more swamps. There's some with graveyards. We have some more portals. We have our crystals down here. I'll explain those in just a moment. We have our graveyards, which I explained earlier. So they gain 1 point, but some are worth more. Some this one's worth 2. This one's worth 3. So depending on which one you get, they're worth more or less. But then they're always worth 5 or 2. So the more graveyard, so whoever has the most gets 5. Whoever has second most gets 2. If you're tied, you tied for first or second, you get that amount. If you are third place, you don't get any extra points. So it's kind of thing, if you start amassing, you start seeing one of the other players amassing them too, you gotta make that decision. Do you just let them have the point and you focus on something else, or do you keep trying to go for it? And some of it might just depend on what's even available. It's not always 100% your option. But yeah, like little stairwells down into the crypts. They have like the statues. It's even neat how they can use the same different like pictures over and over, like grave, like it's actually the same thing, just repeated, just in different positions, and it makes for a completely different picture. So that's those. Okay, and then how crystals work is at the end of the game, if you have a crystal in your possession, you gain 1 point per every type you played. So if you have the blue one here, you would gain 1 for every mushroom you played. So having the crystals are kind of nice, but then you're going to want to focus on that one type. And again, it's just, some of it's just going to be like the luck of the draw, because it's what's available as you go. But as you're playing stuff down, the marketplace for the cards, there's 4 spots out. They're always refreshing. So there's that. Up next, we have the castles where vampires live. You can see all the little bats running around. So these guys gain 2 points normally, just for playing them. And then they gain 2, and I don't remember what that means. Which is why it's a good thing we have this little tip here. So castles have a base point of 2. Each castle is worth another 2 points if it has a vampire token on it, for a maximum of 4. This does not include the point the vampire would get for being a matching monster. Alright, so that's what that means. So castles always gain 2. You play a vampire on there, it gains an additional 2, so you can have 4 points. Then you would later on gain a potential 1 more for having a matching monster on there from the second set. So these can be worth anywhere from 2 to 5 points. Here we have some sandworms to go with our desert. And we have our kobolds, as you've seen. So even like the pictures in here change a little bit. Like he has an axe, or not an axe, his axe is here. He has a club. Some of them have a spear and a neck. Some have a whip and bowl. Not a ton of different designs. But still a few different ones, which makes it at least unique, you know. So here's our desert. Yeah, just this. Zelda flashback. So this has a linking of 2, 0, 2, 6, 12, or 20 points. So how the deserts work. The scores are based off each connected group of deserts. Connected tiles share a border. Each group of desert receives a point as indicated below. It's the size of the desert group. So if you only have 1 desert, you gain no points. If you link 2 deserts, you get 2 points. You gain 3 for 3, 4 for 4, and 5, you gain 20. So basically, the bigger your desert is, the more points you're going to get. But they have to be next to each other. So like the forest, you gain points for just having more forests. It doesn't matter where they are. And the swamps gain bonus for being next to each other, but you're only going to be able to gain 1 swamp. You're only going to be able to gain a maximum of 4 extra points for 1 for each side. But these guys, as you keep running them next to each other, they gain more and more points, which is neat. I'm going to look at the witches here quick. We didn't really look at them too much. So I have that one with his arms up, that one with their arms down. I just wanted to see what the different pictures were. Alright, so here on the bottom we have some of our vampires floating around. Again, not too much difference in each picture. He's hovering 1 foot up, right foot up. There's some more castles. He's got like a closed door. That one has a little treasure chest. And some more sandworms. Here we have our caves. And caves, of course, are dragons. And caves with all these sort of little hatcheries, with all the eggs laying around. The gold, of course, mine carts. What would a cave be without mine carts? So these guys gain +1 normally, and then they gain +2 if they're next to a mountain. So that would be on our board if they're next to one of the mountain spaces. They're going to gain extra 2. And that just kind of like the swamps. That way they just gain extra 2 bonus just for being next to a mountain. Those are those tiles. Alright, we have some more deserts up there. That one has a sand monster in it. There's our skeletons that go in our graveyard. Bunch more down there. There's some more of our witches for our swamps. Here are all our forests. We got a little fairy pond. We have little tiny broken villages. We have some nasty traps in here. There's like a pit trap there. There's a clearly obvious trap right there. Those kobolds. I love the little kobolds sitting around in there too. Like they're hiding in the bushes. They're sleeping. Yeah, that's really neat. So the forest, yeah, they gain per every forest. So 1, 3, 6, 10, 15. So yeah, just the more you can play. And again, this gets to if you play at the bigger board, you're going to get more stuff. You got more options. So here we have our more dragons. We have our sorcerers, who are part of the summoning circles. And up top, we have our volcanoes. And now these ones are considered like the more advanced. Tiles, because they have a little bit trickier things. Like the mountain or the caves just need to be near a mountain. Swamps need to be near the water. Forests gain for more forests. Deserts gain for having more deserts next to each other. Those things are kind of all the easy ones because they're just really easy to figure out. Now these ones, they just have a little bit trickier puzzles. Doesn't make them any less fun. It just means that you have to plan a little bit better. So summoning circles, they each have a base value of 1 point. When you place a summoning circle on your map, you may immediately exchange either a token placed on top of it or a token bordering it with one from the market. So it's showing that once you play it, you just swap one of your tokens and you gain 1 point. So what these guys are really nice for doing, though, is helping you set up other combos. Because, again, like, if I draw this tile with the witch, I could leave her on there if the witch would help me. I have her upside down. If the witch would help me, like, for a banding purpose or whatever. But maybe I want to swap this with one in the marketplace. Oh, I need a dragon for my banding purposes, which is a number of monsters of the same type in a row. Or I want to pull a sorcerer out so I can gain that +1 bonus there. So these guys are kind of nice because they help you set some of that stuff up for the banding purposes. Volcanoes, on the other hand, they're actually very interesting. Volcanoes have a base value of 4. After placing a volcano on your map, return all bordering monsters or mini-boss tokens to the bag. So this is one way you can actually clear off things on your tiles. So when you play this down, you're going to gain 4 points, but you have to destroy all monsters on adjacent tiles. So yeah, if you play it like in the corner, it would just be the 2 on the side. If you play it right in the middle, it could be 4 tiles. And then this would also work into where if you have, like if you play the dungeons, you have an extra monster, or if you're playing against one of the different cards that puts a card in your token spot, now you have an extra one to play out on something different. You can use it as a benefit. Like, play it early, just gain 4 points, don't worry about the damage. Play it later, help clear off some tiles so you can play some different stuff. There can definitely be some strategy there. I'm going to keep popping these out by accident. Next up, we have The Orc Fortresses. And so little orc buddies there. And then we have the clouds. They just called Cloud Islands. Cloud Islands are kind of annoying. They're actually neat. Little harpies on there. So I'm going to look at that one first, because that's one of the more advanced ones. So Cloud Islands each have a base point value of 7. Each Cloud Island loses 1 point for each non-Cloud Island type tile on your map, including dungeons. So they start with 7 points, but every time you play a non-Cloud, they're going to gain less. So you start with 12 tiles. So it's very possible if you play only, so you'd have to play 3 or 4 cloud tiles to actually gain any amount of points. You somehow get all of them, you could definitely have a lot of points. And again, that gets to that whole thing with playing against other players. So like, if I take a cloud tile, because like, oh, okay, I'm going to go for clouds, but then someone else is like, well, I don't want them to get them points, so they might take a cloud too. Well, 2 people competing, you might still be able to get a few points, but again, if it starts getting too high, maybe it's because you weren't drawing clouds, but one of the other players was, and they kept getting them, you might just have to abandon it, and there you might be stuck with 0 points because you have too many other tiles. Yeah, I like the little thing, like there's a portal, there's some broken bridges, some weird cloud monsters. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's like a phoenix. That's cool. Little cloud monster face in there. Then the orcs have all their different barrels and stuff. So now the orcs have a little less different art than all the rest, because they have 2, 2, 2, 2. Because each one has a different banner. So we have the orange, the black, the red, the blue, the purple, and the yellow, showing off the 6 different orc tribes. And so how the orc tribes work, or the camps, I guess as they're called, your score is based on how many unique camp tiles on your map. 2 camps with the same flag are not unique, so only 1 would be counted. So for each different unique one, you gain more points. So if I played 2 purple, I would gain 1 point, because I'd only have 1 different camp. But if I played a purple and a yellow, I would gain 4 points. If I played a blue, purple, and yellow, I would gain 9 points. If I played 4 different ones, I'd gain 16. But then after that, you don't gain any more points. And they don't have a inherent point value like some of the other ones do. So at most, play 4 orcs and then stop. There's no reason, typically there's no reason to play anymore. And I only say that typically, because you're not going to gain any more points that way. But if it's the difference between you play a 5th one, you won't gain any more points. But if you're stopping your opponent from difference between having 9 or 16 points, it might be worth you sacrificing a few points. Alright, so then this is our last tile set. So we have some more clouds. Just some different statues, some beanstalks, some treasures. There's some more harpies. We have the rest of our volcanoes and our fire elementals. I like how some of the volcanoes have steps, some of them don't. Like, who's walking up these steps? That one's like a little skull face. And then 2 more sorcerers. That is all of our different tiles. I kind of hope I'm explaining this well enough. So then we also have our player boards. All 5 player boards are going to be the exact same. So it's not like someone's going to get an advantage because this tile was laying there or that. And then if we flip them over, we just have bigger boards. So it gets another row of 4 tiles down there. And then instead of having your layer right here, you just have it down here on the table. They don't have an extra thing. But yeah, it gives you a little bit longer game. It's just kind of if you want to play a short game or a long game. What else we got here? We have some score pads. We have a bunch of score pads. I was expecting to go from the top down. They're double-sided. It should definitely keep you busy unless you play a ton. And it's kind of like Yahtzee in that sense. You keep track of your score. So yeah, if you're playing a 2-player game, you can always do like 1, 2. If you use the same tile types, you can do like, you know, next 2 columns. But yeah, it's just how you score for each of your terrain types, and then you calculate your tile score, and then you get points if you have mini bosses for your crystals, for your maximum monsters, banding. You do that, and you figure out your boss score if you have a boss, and your total. We also have a little bag. This is where you put all your tokens in. So you stack all of these guys straight up and down. I think you shuffle them all. Then you can put all your little tiny ones in there because they're double-sided, so you can't see which one you're doing. And then when you place your tiles out in your marketplace, you place them like this, and you reach in your bag. You'll pull out your tokens, and you put them down. So I'd be like, well, this guy gets that one, this one gets that, and that one got that. And I only have 3 in there, so it's going to be 4 in the marketplace. But then player 1 would decide which one they want. If they choose the swamp tile here, they take this crystal with it. And then this crystal would go to their, layer here. And then I get to place the tile wherever. If I cook the swamp, I could put my swamp wherever. And my little kid croak would go right in the middle there. So that would start me scoring. If I'd taken this summoning circle, I could put this wherever. And then I would have my cobalt in there. But I could also use its ability to swap it with something else. So I could be like, you know what? I don't want this. I'm going to swap him with that mini boss. I'd rather have that mini boss for 2 extra points. That's kind of how that one works. So there's that. We have some special trays in here from game trays, which will hold all our different tiles and tokens. I'm not 100% sure how they all slide in here as of... Oh, I know what this is. This is for the... I believe that's what this is for. This is for my tower. So I have a special tower that I got from Kickstarter. So if you just get the game normally, I don't know if you get this piece or not. If you do, you might just have to toss it away. Otherwise, you get this tray right here. And that might be why they want you to put more tiles in there, because if I don't have that extra tray, then there's a pretty big gap in there. So then we can pull this off, and we have our boss cards. We have our special little cards here, which we'll look at in a moment. But then now you're going to have all your terrain cards, which you can lay in there, and then that way you can have them all sorted out. So that way you can find them really quick. And then they have the spot for all the tokens there that go underneath. So I can put... So if I put my kobolds down there, I can lay them on top. That way they're all together. So it's like, alright, I'm getting ready to play as I want to play as this. I have all my tiles from my swamps right there. So then you don't have to like mix and match them all. And I'll fill this up and put it at the end of the video so we can see how it looks with everything in there. And the special tower I'm talking about, I will also show off. Is part of like a Kickstarter thing. It might be purchasable outside of Kickstarter as well. I don't know if it was 100% Kickstarter exclusive, but it's not part of the core game. So I'll show that off as well in this video. Because there wasn't a whole lot of just Kickstarter exclusive stuff. So here are all our different characters, our different bosses you can play as. And they're all bosses from the Boss Monster game. So they're all special characters there. So King Croak has draft twice this turn, skip your next turn. So that just gives you a little bit of advantage. So basically you play these cards laying face down, and at some point during the game you can flip them over and be like, aha, I'm going to use my reveal ability, and let's use your ability at that turn. And then you can do your score. So you see scores +2 for each dungeon on your map at the end of the game. And like boss cards are going to make that neat. They'll have a neat one-time effect but then their scoring ability will also dictate maybe how you're going to play. So we have Belladonna. Remove a token from your map, then draw 3 random tokens from the bag. Choose one, place it on your map or the layer. Return the remaining tokens to the bag. Score 2 for each token in your layer at the end of the game. So she actually gains bonuses for having stuff in the layer. We have Killa. Move a token on your map to a terrain tile without a token. So let's readjust your tokens around. If you have no bands of monster tokens at the end of the game, you score 12 or 21. So this one gains bonuses for not banding creatures together. Zaxus? I don't know. I've never figured out how to pronounce that. Exchange 1 token on your map or layer with a token from the market. Score the following based on the number of tokenless terrain tiles on your map, not counting dungeons. So if you have 6 or more without any tiles, you gain 6 points. Or if you have 0 tiles, you gain 6 points. Or 8. If you have 1 tile, you gain 3. If you have 3 or more, you gain 0. So this wants you to have tokenless tiles. Oh, it wants you to have not tokenless tiles. So if you have no tokenless tiles, you gain a ton of points, but then the more you have. I gotcha. We have Cerebellus. Discard and then restock all tokens in the market. Terrain tiles do not get replaced. For every 4 or more same monster type on your map, score +4. Cleopatra. You may use any number of tokens in your layer as if they were unused portals, even a used portal. Return that token to the bag after using it. Score 1 for each matching monster on your map. Kazana. Discard and then restock all terrain tiles in the market. Tokens do not get replaced. Score +3 for each separate group of exactly 3 tiles of the same type of terrain. So if you have a 9 board, you could potentially score an extra 9 points for having 3 tiles of the same type. We have Portis. When drafting this turn's tile and token set, you may take a tile and token. You may take any tile and any token from the marketplace, so you can mix and match. Score 1 for each type of monster and mini boss on your map. Each mini boss is unique. So there's I think 6 different mini bosses, so you can gain 1 for each, and then there's the 5 different monster types. So you could potentially have 9 different extra points if you play a different monster on every tile. Explodo. At the start of your turn, destroy 3 tokens Destroy 3 tokens on your map. When you draft this turn, take 1 tile and all tokens from the marketplace, and then restock. So you basically blow up 3 of your tokens, and then now you get to take all 4 of them from the marketplace, but you only get to put 1 on your tile immediately, I believe. There's rules for that. Score 1 for each band on your map that includes no matching monsters. So this wants you to have a bunch of monsters that are the same in a row, but it doesn't want you to have any that match the tiles they go to. Creax. Slide 1 of your tiles into an open space bordering it. Any tokens on that tile travel with it. Score the following based on the number of tile types, including dungeons, you have on your board. So the more different tiles you have, the bigger your score. And they're back to King Croak. Alright, so that gives you a bunch of different options, which is really cool. And then we have these little tiny ones. These are the commander cards. And we have some terrain selection cards. Kind of looks like they all got mixed together, which is fine. So these are special cards you can play. still lets you do different things. Intimidate, Demolish, and Overthrow. And then you have your terrain types. I believe you can select, if you want to like randomly select which ones you have, you can just choose and pick it out. Like, oh, I got this one, that one. So all the 3 different things are all the same. And then there's a camp. And it's also showing which tiles go with it. And it's just if you want to kind of like have a randomly selected game, you can just pick out these little cards and be like, okay, I'm going to take these 5, and that's what I got. So those are those. Where's our rule book? We're going to look at what... Let's zoom back out a little bit. So, commander cards are powerful actions that may take effect during any player. You may affect any player's map, including your own, during the setup. Shuffle the command deck so that the player deal 4 command cards out in a row near the market. To activate a command, simply complete a pattern of the same terrain type as shown on the card. The patterns may be flipped or rotated. The tile you place on your turn must complete the pattern. It is okay if the tiles were used to activate a previous command. Once activate, resolve the command card shown below, then discard the card and replace it with another. So, Intermediate saying if you get 2 tiles next to each other, you get to do this effect. So here is just if you get 3 in a row, whether it's a line, an L shape, or diagonal, you get to do this effect. And here it's if you get 4, so either an L shape, a Z shape, or a square shape. So Intimidate Command requires a pair of bordering tiles with the same type. When this is completed, you may slide any tile with its token on any map space to an adjacent space. So you can put 2 tiles next to each other, and then you can slide a different tile next to something else. And then Demolish. Command requires 3 tiles of the same type. When completed, you may destroy any tile and its token on any map. So you can, obviously, you can move your stuff or destroy your stuff, or you can mess with your opponents. And that's another thing that makes the game a little bit more interactive. The owner of that tile must immediately draft a new pair from the market and place it in the old tile spot. Crystals and portals go to your lair. Return destroyed tokens to the bag. Discard destroyed tiles. If you run out of tiles, shuffle the discard and start a new pile. And then Overthrow. Commands require an arrangement of 4 tiles. When completed, you may swap the placement of any 2 tiles on the same or a different maps. You can even trade tiles with opponents. So it kind of adds a nice little tweak to the game. Like, definitely, maybe play a few games without using that. Maybe play a game with the bosses. Or you can play with the bosses or the command cards. You don't have to always use both. So that's that. The other thing I'll look at here, just want to re-go over, is the crystal cards. So mini-bosses where 2 points are placed on, they may be placed on any terrain tile except the dungeons, because you can't place things on the dungeons, and do not count towards monsters banding of monsters. Crystals grant bonuses to specific types, including types you're creating. Remember to include 5 crystals in every game, 1 for each type used. Always place it in your lair. At the end of the game, score 1 point per terrain tile that crystals type. For example, if you have the forest with 4 forest tiles, you'd score 4 points. Portals are not worth any points. They're placed in your lair active side up with the glowing door. Once per turn, you may use a single active portal, flip it over to change the position of up to 2 monsters or mini-bosses on your map. So pick up 1 or 2 tokens on your map, immediately place those same tokens on a currently open tile on your map. You may reposition the tokens to fall away. Move 1 token to an open tile, move 2 tokens to open tiles, move 1 token to an open tile, then move the other token where the first one was, because that would be open, or swap the position of 2 tiles. So that's a way you can kind of, if you have empty tiles, how you can get stuff out. You may use it at any time during your turn, but only once. Portals only move monsters The trains stay the same. Use portals remain. You just flip them over, so you don't. There's only so many portals, so you can't keep getting them over and over. And the portals only affect tokens on the map. You may not swap stuff that's in your lair. Then the last thing I just wanted to point out for this was alright, here. So, putting stuff, tiles in your lair. Because of the dungeon, you have some. If you have an unused monster or mini-boss in your lair, on a future turn, you may place it into a new tile you collected instead of the new token that was collected. In this case, put the new token there. So, if you ended up with, let's say you placed a dungeon tile and you had a kobold, and you put it down in your lair. Then, your next turn, you grab a forest, but it has a dragon on it. You could instead put the kobold down there from your lair, and then you have your matching type, and put the dragon in down here in your lair instead. However, any unused monsters or mini-boss tokens in your lair must always be placed onto an open trading tile if there is one available. This means you may only end your turn with unused monster tiles or mini-boss lair if you have no open trading tiles. So, if for something like, if you would use like a volcano to destroy a couple of your tiles and you have anything in your lair, you have to place them before the end of your turn. You can't leave stuff sitting open. Just because. Although that's only if they're in your lair. So if like you have no monsters in your lair, you can have open spots. In general, tokens may only have one token on it. Alright, that's the basis of the game. That's all the different tiles. All that cool stuff. So the last thing I want to go over is just, I'm going to look at some of the extra Kickstarter, extra bonus stuff I got. That doesn't, I don't know if we're going to be able to get it, but I'm not going to do a separate video just because there's not. Alright, so the first two things we're going to look at are things I don't believe were necessarily Kickstarter exclusives. So I think you might be able to pick these up later if you want. And they're just things that maybe help play the game a little bit better or a little bit differently. I don't know. So one is the Tile Tower. This is from Broken Token. So it might be available. There's a barcode, so it's probably available from their website. So it's just a little Overboss tower. Shows you how to construct it quick. It's made out of some light wood. So here's what that looks like. And that's what that other tray, I believe, was for. It's so that way you can take this apart, because it just slides apart really easily. Which I really like, if that's what that is for, because I built this and I was like, oh, how am I going to display this? Because if I can't display it, I'm going to get glue and at least glue these down. So the idea of what this is supposed to be is you have all your tiles, and you take them and you stack them in here, and then while you're playing the game, you're like, oh, I need to grab my new tile. Got my tile. Okay, we gotta draw this tile. And that's what this is supposed to do, is hold all your tiles in there. Or I suppose you could set some up on top if you really wanted to. You only had a couple. But it's supposed to be like a little aesthetic, because you have a little tower to play with. But also just that way it holds them all from maybe sliding over, or if you have a big stack, they don't tip over. It's just kind of a neat little extra bonus. Is it needed to play the game? Definitely not. But it is really cool. Plus, if you have them in there with the little gate and stuff, you're gonna see your you're gonna see your cards in there, which are kind of cool. The other thing, also not necessarily needed, but maybe help boost up the playability, is the marketplace board. So this is just so you can have a board for your marketplace. Again, is it needed? No. All you have to do for marketplace, place 4 tiles down, place your four monster tokens. There you go. This one just has the actual marketplace. So while I'm playing, I just got a little bit more game aesthetic. So I can play my 4 tiles down. Play my monsters. and it just gives you a little board to put them on. You know, like lots of play mats and type of things. Is it necessary? Definitely not. Especially for something like this. It's not like it's difficult to remember how they go. I'm assuming some people might even just put the tokens right on the card when they're doing it. And you can do that, just if you get some of the ones that make you have to shuffle and have to keep sliding them off. So that's that. Plus it just has some neat little artwork. So we have some source robes with some little sandworms. 2% off sale. Just selling some various trinkets and stuff. That one's passed out. That one's hiding back there for some reason. And if you played Boss Monster, these guys do have a couple of shops set up on some of the cards. It's just also another, like, callback to that. And there's nothing on the back. Alright, so that's those things. Then they have some Kickstarter exclusive stuff. So a bunch of my tiles fell out. But we have one Kickstarter exclusive token or tile train set. We have the tower. So we have a couple of different like slimy, goopy towers. There's some there. Yeah, they all fell out in the box while I was moving stuff around. There's a couple different ones there. So that's, yeah, get a new terrain type, which will add a little bit more difficulty. There's some, like, evil eyes. And then, of course, there's the black crystal, because you have to have a crystal for it. It would have been cool if they had an extra mini-boss to it, I guess. But, you know, I can't ask for everything, right? So, we're going to get another one of the little cards to go with it for the selection cards. So you can randomize that one in there as well. And then we can find out the tower terrain rules. We can find out how this works. Towers may hold up to 3 tokens, monsters and mini-bosses. When placing a token, you may stack it on this tile, covering up any previous tokens underneath it until the tower reaches its max height of 3 tokens. Towers are worth 1 base point, plus 1 per token on it, for a maximum of 4 points. Interesting. When scoring bands, matching monsters, and when using player abilities, only consider the topmost token on the stack. Portals may be used to add new tokens to the stack or reposition the topmost token in the stack to another tile. So you can basically anything you have stacked on there, you just treat the top one as what's visible and what you can do. Command cards impact all tokens on a target tower. When evaluating whether an unused monster or mini-boss may remain in your lair, a tower is considered to be an open tile. An open tile until it has reached its maximum height of 3 tokens. So that could definitely add some interesting gameplay. What would really suck is if you had a bunch of these stacked up and then someone dropped a volcano on you. That would suck. So then the other thing we get is we have a new boss to go with that. We have 2 bosses, actually. So we have the Collective, which this is representing the Brothers Wise, who are the creators of the game. So you look at each boss card that has not yet been revealed. For each card you looked at, you may refresh 1 portal in your lair. So earlier on, abusing the layers, this could really be helpful with these guys. At the end of the game, choose 1. Score 1 for each band of exactly 2 monsters on your map, or score plus 3 for each mini-boss on your map. So that's kind of neat. Gives you some options. And then we have, actually, the Brothers Wise. They made, like, their own card where they're a 2-headed, like, ogre or troll. Or orc. I'm not sure what race that would be. Just a 2-headed behemoth. Reveal at the start of an opponent's turn. You may choose the tile and the token they draft this turn. They choose where both are placed. Interesting, so you can mess them up. Again, Volcano would be a terrible thing to play. Or, you know, mess ups if they only have one water spot left and they're going for swamps. You could cover up that. Score the following based on the number of separate groups of exactly 2 tiles on the same terrain type. Score the following based on the number of separate groups of exactly 2 tiles of the same terrain type. Okay, so as long as you only have two of the same types. So if you have one pair, you gain 1 point. 2, 4. Okay, that's okay. We're playing pairs. I like it. Yes, it gets 2 extra bosses. That's kind of cool. And then we get this special little baggie, just as original backer on there. Same material and everything, I believe. Looks like it's the other one, same size. Nothing extra special about it there, other than it's gold printed and just states that I'm a original backer. Then the very, very last thing for this, and then I'll do a quick stop for a moment, fill up the boxes and see what that looks like, is we also got 2 separate cards for Boss Monster. So if you watch my one video with the box for Boss Monster, you've already seen these, but we get the Collective and the Overworld Gate Trap Room. So that's kind of an extra boss character for that, and an extra trap room that kind of works in with just the Overworld Gate. Yeah, for Boss Monster. So if you were a huge Boss Monster fan, you'd be missing out these 2 cards, but that's kind of the downside of Kickstarter. Is you're always going to be missing a couple little things here or there. Alright, so be back in just a moment with some full tiles. Alright, I have all the tiles sorted out. I did want to show off this. So when you're playing the game, you have to have 5 stacks of tiles. So this is what 5 stacks of tiles looks like. Let me get out into the light a little bit more. So it's just, it's tower. That's done yet. It's not going to fall over. You usually grab a tile out. Yeah, so just kind of want to show it. So if you're going to normally have these stacked, you might normally play, might not want to have them all stacked up that high. But at least this kind of justifies sort of the use of the tower. If I only had like 1 or 2 in there, I was like, oh, that's not a whatever, big deal. But like, yeah, if you have all 5 stacked in there, terrain types, it's going to make a difference. So that's that. And I will pour those out in a minute so I can see what the thing looks like. So here's the game tray. See if I can get these out without spilling them all over, maybe. So yeah, the game tray is designed this little box for it, so it's really nice. I'm not going to tip it over too much because I don't have the rest of the tiles in there. But that's a nice spot for every single thing. You're going to have 1 extra hole if you don't have the Kickstarter set. Which, I don't know, maybe it's not, I'm assuming it's a Kickstarter exclusive, but you never know. Always check their website if you're interested, because sometimes they have extra they left over. So, I don't know how well it'll show, but the tiles all fit really nice in the bottom here for all the different creatures. And then they have to lay down a little bit. They have a little angled spot in there, so they actually lay down on purpose. And that's just so the tiles will sit flat. So I can grab all the rest of my tiles and drop them in their specific spots. And then that way when you're playing, you can just pick whichever tiles you want. And you're ready to go. And they have nice little finger gaps in here. Between each spot. So we have our dungeons. And our dry agents. Here's our vampires. And our swamps. And then in the bottom corner down here, I have our towers, which are the Kickstarter one. Up here, I have the dungeons. You can see they're sitting a little bit lower because there's not as many dungeons. But they have a spot for those. And there's going to be a gap, same in there, so they can actually go in any order. So you can choose how to put these in however you want. There's not a specific way. Boss cards sit right in the middle. And you have little spots here for your terrain selection cards and your commander cards. And if I pick those up, we have another little spots here for our portals and our mini bosses. And they don't they're kind of just sliding around in there because there's not as many to hold them in there. But yeah, that's kind of neat. Now you can set those guys back down in there. Helps holds those tokens in there. There's a gap in here, really for nothing. I put my crystals with the monsters because you have to include them every game. I suppose if you wanted to, you could put all the crystals underneath the dungeon, or put the mini bosses in the dungeon, put the crystals there. But since you have to include them in every game anyhow, I just left them in there. There's a nice little spot right here. I don't know if they designed this like that on purpose, but it fits this extra, like, regular playing size terrain style card. And then we're gonna have our monster cards. We'll set back in there, and they do fit in. They don't fit in there super tight. They kind of hold in there a bit. But now we can snap this shut, and then look at that. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna do this, and it's gonna be the one time it doesn't hold. But yeah, look at that. I can hold it. These game trays are really nice. The company that makes them, game trays, down here in the bottom, game trays. Yeah, they make some really nice stuff. This works really well. I like it when games, like a lot more Kickstarter games are starting to work with places like this, or Broken Token, or different companies to make these trays that work specifically for their games. And it definitely makes it worth it. So now I shook these around, and you can see what happened in the middle here. So all my command cards and everything kind of shook, because there's nothing to really hold any of those in place. So although, yes, just a thing to point out, like all my bosses and all my swamp card, or all my other tokens jumped down into there. And I'll fix that later. So, yeah, this will hold them, keep them from tipping out if you tip your box upside down, but it's not going to 100% keep everything from shuffling around. So now what I also did was I took all the punch trays like they wanted. I took every punch tray, and they have nice little finger holes here on the side, so if you want to get rid of any of them, you can. So now I can put my base game right in here, and we have, you sell our tiles, our board, our instruction, everything right on there. It fits right to the top. But I'm going to see what happens if I put this other tray in there, so I'm going to pause for a second and sort that out. Alright, so what I did then is I actually took out all of the punch boards, and you may want to keep one or two in there depending on what you do here. Or keep all of them. So it's going to be up to you on how you want to start. So here I have all my instruction books, everything sitting on top. I have my extra tiles, so this actually adds a little bit of extra thickness in there. But if I take that out, this extra tray holds all your towers, or all your tiles. So it's probably a nice thing to keep. I mean, it's included in the box anyhow, but it'll help hold your tiles from sliding all around and corners getting too dinged up. And then if I take them out, now I got my tray in there. What I actually should do is, I wonder if I drop the, yeah, look at this. They have little nubs right there in here. This is for the instruction book. And I wonder if that is for my tile marketplace. And then you do that. Like, look at this. Look at how elegant that's designed. It's designed to hold Kickstarter content in there. And if you don't have that, hold your book, hold that, and I just gotta slide these guys in here somewhere, lay them there or wherever. But you can see there's a slight little gap on the top there. But yeah, once you throw all your books in there, it's not gonna be that much. Like, these might slide around a little bit. I don't know. I think they specified in the, like, how to do this video they did to put this tray on the bottom and then put your tokens on the top. And I'm guessing that's because, but I'd rather have this on the bottom because it has the lid. And these are, I don't know, I guess you could go either way. But then either way, you're going to have to take something out all the way. So you're going to pull out this one tray, or you're going to have to pull these out every single time. I'd rather just pop the top off on this. But that's kind of up to you. I mean, you could put this on the bottom, pull your tray out. But yeah, it holds everything really nicely. Stick the lid back on. We're closed back up. We're good to go. Alright, so that's what I got for Overboss. I hope I explained it well enough. I definitely love to try and do a gameplay video of this. So catch you guys later. Check out the rest of my other boss monster videos if you want to see more content about this. See you guys later. Bye.